Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm very excited because I am taking a look at very beautiful and special laptop. It is this one. This is the Dell XPS 13 Plus, all new for 2022. This laptop is beautifully made and is different from conventional laptops in many ways. And I've been using this laptop for several days and I wanted to share my initial thoughts on this laptop with you in this video. So let's begin. The 13 Plus comes in a very minimalistic and recyclable package, and you don't have too many things inside, but you have two adapters which I'll get to later. The 13 Plus weighs a little over 1.2 kilograms or 1.57 kilograms with adapters and cables. So let's look at the exterior of this laptop. The chassis is made of CNC aluminum, full CNC aluminum, beautifully crafted. It comes in either white or black depending on where you are, because where I am in Korea, the only available version is this black version, which is beautiful, but one less option to choose from, unfortunately. Here are some specs for you. When it comes to processor, you can choose one of the Intel 12th Gen P processors. You can have up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, 2 terabytes of PCIe Gen 4 SSD. And there are some display and color options too. Opening up the lid, you will notice that certain things are very different on this laptop, especially on the keyboard deck, because here you don't see conventional function keys, physical function keys are missing, because instead what you have here is what Dell calls capacitive function row, which is essentially touch bar. Dell says it's not, but that's what it is. It is touch bar. That means that you don't have that physical escape key, nor do you have physical delete key, which might annoy some people like me. I'm generally annoyed by the lack of physical escape key as well as the lack of delete key, because it turned out that the most used key combination for me on Windows was Control Alt Delete, because apps fail, crash, and in that case you need to bring up Task Manager. Unfortunately, that is the way it is. So to talk about the touch bar, it works. It is very responsive. It is bright enough to see in this black color, but some people who bought the white version says that the keys, including the touch bar, may not be visible under bright conditions. So just one thing to keep in mind if you are making a purchase decision or deciding what color to buy. One another thing that you want to know about this function, this capacitive touch bar, is that you cannot adjust the brightness of this touch bar. There is no option. It automatically adjusts its brightness depending on the ambient light level, which may sound bad, but I think the bright control on this touch bar is pretty great, especially on this black color. So I didn't find that lack of adjustability, if that is a word, too annoying. So below this keyboard, we are supposed to see a trackpad, but it seems like there is no trackpad because there is no indication, visual indication as to where the trackpad begins and ends. But there is one, and the trackpad begins from right alt to left alt, which is pretty big, and it is glass. It is buttery smooth. I've never used anything like this. It's so pleasant to use this trackpad. Run your fingers on. It is buttery smooth, and I love this feeling. And another different thing about this trackpad is that it doesn't actually click, because it doesn't have mechanical clicking mechanism. It doesn't have clicking mechanical part below. It has instead several piezo motors. What these piezo motors do is very similar to the force touch feature on a MacBook. These motors simulate clicking feelings, the clicking sensation by giving you some tactile feedback, and it works beautifully. It feels like as if you are clicking actual button, and you can even customize the strength by 4 levels, which is great. All in all, I think this is easily the best trackpad on any Windows laptop, or including MacBook's trackpads. So when it comes to display, there are several options you can choose from: Full HD plus non-touch, touch, 3.5K OLED, and 4K LCD. The one I chose is 3.5K OLED that has a very weird resolution, 3400 something by 2160. It's 400 nits and it's entirely reflective, beautiful contrast and beautiful colors, dark blacks. I love this display. The con of this OLED display is the power consumption. The battery life suffers when you choose this option. Something to keep in mind. It also touches. And on the display, you have a 720p webcam that is Windows Hello enabled. You can use this keyboard, you can use this webcam for biometric login as well. Let's talk about the port selection or lack thereof. This is probably the most controversial aspect of this laptop because it only has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports that both supports power and display output as well. One is on the left side and the other is on the right side, which is great because everyone wants to be flexible with regards to their port or cable management. There's a catch. It doesn't have a headphone jack. Yeah, the good old 3.5mm headphone jack is gone in this laptop. That basically makes it necessary for you to use hubs, dongles, or even a Thunderbolt 4 dock like I do. But fortunately, some dongles come in the box, like the 3.5mm to Type-C jack, as well as Type-C to A dongle, which is very considerate of Dell. But I have to wonder how long they will give you 3.5mm jack or adapter, because that's what Apple had done with their iPhones until they didn't. Removing the bottom panel for upgrade is easy as long as you have the Torx screwdriver, but the only upgradable part is SSD. The speakers are great. It has 2 4-watt speakers left and right. It is probably the best sounding laptop in this category, 13-inch or 14-inch thinner light laptop. Because it's small, it lacks lows and bass a little bit. The lows are a little hollow, but that is kind of taken for granted in this category because good lows and bass requires bigger woofers or bigger speakers. Except for that, this sounds awesome. Have a listen. Let's talk about performance. This laptop can be configured up to 1280p i7 processor that has 12 cores, 4 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. This has the 1240p. Keep that in mind as I talk about its performance. It is the slowest option that you can choose from, but it's still very powerful for its size. In Cinebench R23, the XPS 13 Plus scored 8500 with all settings maxed out, which is pretty fast. And while the benchmark was running, the computer wasn't too loud, measuring around 41-42 decibels. The problem was the heat. The surface temperature was around 43 to 44 degrees, and the hottest area that I could measure was over 47 degrees, which is too hot to touch. With moderate settings, the XPS 13 scored around 6600, and that still is twice as fast as the last gen's Intel processor. The fans were impressively quiet. So the XPS 13 will be mostly quiet under everyday workload. So that the CPU can be really powerful, but it is not a proper gaming machine because it doesn't have a dedicated GPU. It can play League of Legends with all settings maxed out just fine with decent frame rates, but it struggles with more GPU intensive games. Battleground was playable, but the frame rates were bad. And the system ran pretty hot and noisy too. So before I received this laptop, I had expected a poor battery life out of this laptop, partly because I chose the OLED option. OLED displays tend to be less power efficient than LCD options. And it also has too many pixels to power at 3.5K resolution, in my opinion. That is way too many pixels for its size. It's only 13-inch and it has way too many pixels to power, to drive. With that in mind, in my testing where I did everyday tasks, light tasks, such as having too many Chrome tabs open, doing office stuff, email, Notion, and Messenger apps, with moderate settings, so it's brightness set to 40 to 50% and performance set to optimized. This laptop lasted about 6 to 7 hours. In another test where I watched Netflix HDR content continuously, it lasted 5 to 6 hours. That is not a good battery life. So if battery life is your concern, you want to choose the full HD plus LCD option. So in general, I really love this laptop. It is beautifully designed. It has amazing pieces of hardware such as the trackpad, the speakers, and the screen is just gorgeous to look at. But the keyboard is not the most practical, the most pleasant typing experience, and the touch bar can be really annoying when you press delete or escape keys. So if you are pressing these keys often, then you don't want to buy this laptop probably. And so it's generally a good, well-made laptop, but it doesn't give you good value for money because it's a premium device that commands premium price. If you are willing to pay that premium for its novelty and design, then probably it's a good fit for you. That concludes my initial thoughts on this laptop. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.